Listen, one of the toughest truths to accept in this dynamic is that her tests aren't rejections. They're often signs of deeper interest. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but the more a woman feels something real for you, the more likely she is to challenge your stability, push at your calm, and test whether the man she's drawn to is genuinely grounded or just playing the part. Because at the core, what she's examining isn't your patience, it's your consistency. She wants to feel out. Can you hold your center when things get emotional? Can you remain rooted when intensity rises? Are you leading from true inner strength? Or are you holding it together just enough until she falls for the illusion? The truth is, when a woman starts wanting you more, she also becomes more vulnerable. And with that vulnerability comes fear. So what does fear do? It tests. Not to damage, not to destroy, but to ensure. She's looking for something she can trust. And she can't trust a man who gets shaken easily. She won't open up to someone who crumbles the second she questions his position. So she stirs the waters, throws out little storms, not to sink you, but to observe how you sail through them. And the man who weathers them with calm strength, quiet presence, and without begging for reassurance? That's the man who earns her deeper self. You'll notice it right when things begin to feel serious. You've got her attention. The connection is forming. And suddenly, she says something sharp, pulls back, or gets moody over nothing major. That's not her checking out. That's her saying, this feels real, maybe too real. Let's see if he stays solid when I'm unsure. If you panic, over-explain, apologize excessively, or try to pull her back to comfort, you've failed that test. But if you remain calm, steady, and unfazed, just continuing to show up as the same man you were before the shift, she feels something even stronger than attraction. She feels safe. Her tests show up in different forms: emotional distance, playful teasing, sarcasm, sudden coldness. The packaging doesn't matter, the root is always the same. She wants to see if your masculinity holds steady against her emotional waves. Because her feminine nature, it's chaos, it's movement, it's testing and emotion and feeling. If your masculine energy collapses every time she shifts, she can't relax into you. But if you stay grounded, unfazed, calmly leading, then she can let go. And that's what she's really after. Most men take those tests the wrong way. They think she's being difficult or trying to manipulate them. They miss the deeper signal, and that's when they fail. They react emotionally to something that was never about them. It was about her need to feel secure in who she's choosing. Your reaction either confirms or calms that fear. If you get needy, angry, or emotional, you validate her fear. But if you stay calm, clear, or even silent, you ease it. Suddenly, she sees you differently. Not as just another man, but as someone who can't be swayed by her emotional storms. That's also why the guy she's indifferent about, he rarely gets tested. If she doesn't care, there's no need to check his strength. He's not important enough for that energy. But the man who stirs something in her, he'll face fire. Not because he's losing, but because he's getting closer. And she needs to know he won't break under that closeness. Her tests aren't punishment. They're a filter for long-term emotional trust. And you pass them not by resisting or retaliating, but by staying still through them. You let the waves come and go. You don't get defensive when she challenges you. You don't try to fix her mood. You just lead, unmoved. That kind of emotional discipline, that's what earns her surrender. When you're not afraid of her chaos, you become the anchor she's been looking for. Understand something, the tests don't stop. They just evolve. Even when she's in love with you, she'll still test your strength. Not to provoke you, but because feminine energy thrives on tension. Polarity requires it. If you're always yielding, always trying to smooth things over, always avoiding friction, there's no edge. And without edge, there's no respect. Sometimes she'll need to feel that edge. Not your aggression, not your temper, but your boundaries, your calm refusal to bend, your firm stance that doesn't require raised voices or grand gestures. That contrast, your presence next to her storm, that's what deepens her respect, even if she seems upset in the moment. Don't see her tests as threats to your identity. The moment you think, I need to pass this or she'll leave, you've already surrendered your frame. Her tests aren't ultimatums, they're invitations. Invitations for you to show up as who you truly are. She's not watching for flawlessness. She's watching for your ability to remain real under pressure. Can you hold steady when it's inconvenient? Can you maintain your tone when her emotions are all over the place? That's when she sees the man, not during peace, but during unpredictability. She wants to know her love won't make you soft, that her beauty won't make you forget your values, that her silence won't throw off your rhythm. And when she sees that, when you stay seated in your center while still being present, she leans in, she softens. Because now she knows you don't need her to validate your worth. That kind of presence, it's magnetic. One of the biggest misconceptions in relationships is thinking a woman tests you to shake your confidence. She doesn't. She does it hoping to believe in it. She wants to feel your strength and know it's not just a show. She presses to see if you stay still, if you hold frame, if you respond with calm consistency instead of changing tone just to soothe her. And when you do, that's when she exhales. Because now she knows you're not just stable when life is easy, but especially when it's uncertain. Here's the twist. The safer she feels with you, the more she'll test, not in a destructive way, but playfully, energetically. Because her feminine energy loves that tension, that contrast with your edge. The testing becomes a dance. And the man who passes, he doesn't resist. He redirects. He smirks instead of snapping. He leans back rather than chasing. That calm refusal to fold, that's what makes her respect deepen. She's not asking for perfection, she's asking for steadiness. When she throws a challenge, pulls away for a moment, or questions your intent, she's just observing. Is this man's structure real? If your mood depends on hers, if your confidence crumbles when she's cold, she knows you're not grounded. And she can't fully trust a man who lacks internal stability. But when she sees you stand firm, that's when the walls begin to fall. You create that presence not through control, but through detachment from outcome. Like, you don't lead to impress her. You lead because it's who you are, with or without her approval. And that detachment, that's what makes her respect run deep. Because the man who isn't afraid to lose her never tries to control her. He gives her space to be fully feminine. And that freedom, that trust, is what makes her want to follow. Even if she gets loud, you stay quiet. Not out of fear, but discipline. You don't out-yell her, you don't join her chaos, you stay centered. Because your power comes from stillness, not volume. You say less, but each word hits harder. You take longer to respond, but every sentence lands with weight. And as she watches you stay composed in the fire, her desire deepens. Not because you won, but because you showed her her emotions don't shake your behavior. That's when she begins respecting your silence more than other men's explanations. The longer you remain consistent through her waves, the more she lets go. She softens. She starts treating your presence with care. Why? Because now you've given her emotional certainty. She no longer worries whether you're solid. She no longer fears that one disagreement will break your bond. And when a woman feels that certainty, when she knows she can be fully herself and you won't collapse, that's when she opens. Not just physically, emotionally, spiritually, completely. And if her tests escalate, if her emotions rise, you don't take it personally, you don't retaliate, you observe, you ask, is this a moment to assert or a moment to preserve my energy? Because the man who knows his value doesn't argue for respect, he restricts access where it's lacking. That quiet boundary, it speaks louder than confrontation. It says, be who you are, but I will protect my peace. And sometimes the strongest move isn't to fight, but to walk. Eventually she'll say something like, you don't react like other guys, or I feel calm with you. That's when you know she sees it. Not just your words, but your emotional backbone. And from that point on, her tests change. They become lighter, less frequent, because now she trusts. And when a woman trusts you on that level, you unlock the version of her that honors your presence as much as she craves your touch. But that only comes after you pass the early tests. By not breaking under pressure. By not explaining yourself every few minutes. By not trying to prove your value to someone who's still discovering her own. You pass by standing tall in your truth. Not by being cold, not by being harsh, but by being unshakable. That presence is rare. It's what separates the boy craving validation from the man who commands emotional gravity. So the next time she tests you, don't take it as an attack. See it as recognition. She's saying, I want to feel safe with you, but I need to know you can handle all of me. And when you meet that test with calm, quiet strength, when you don't flinch, fold, or react, that's when she stops testing and starts trusting. Not because you won a game, but because you proved your presence was real.